Hi, this is Phil Gibbs from OpenMake Software, and welcome to another in the series I like to call How to Do Cool Things with DeployHub. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at version jumping. What do I mean by version jumping? So version jumping is when we apply deltas from intervening versions, so I can go from any version of an application to any later version of an application, and DeployHub will automatically apply all the intervening versions in order to roll the application forward. Why would I need to do that? Typically database. Okay, when you're deploying an application, generally speaking, it doesn't matter whether the code being deployed is several versions later than the version that's currently on the target environment. But when you're deploying a database changes tend to be applied as alter scripts, and so they move a database forward from one release to the next. So if you're deploying version 5 and you've currently got version 3, you have to apply the intervening versions of the database changes in order to roll the database forward successfully. Anyway, DeployHub can take care of all of that for you, so let's show you how that would work. So in this particular example, we're using our usual IT guys demo, and in development, we're up to version 2. And in version 2, we've added a date of birth column. If I look at test and production, you can see the date of birth column is not there. So this application has essentially two components to it. An application component which delivers the sort of user experience, this wonderful web page, and there's a database component which represents the backend database. So in production and test, we have a database with just two columns in it. Development has got the date of birth column added to the database, and the application code has been changed to display this column. So what we're going to do is, that's in development right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move that into our UAT domain. That doesn't deploy it, all that does is move it into the UAT domain so that the testing team can see it, and pick it up and deploy it. And there would be a notification process that notified the testers that this was now available for them to pull. So we've gone from an agile model in development, now we're going to a more traditional waterfall method, and getting the testers to do a pull of this application when they're ready to test it. Okay, so we've got the version 2 is now in UAT. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy that to our test environment. And I'm going to select UAT M1 and hit OK. So what that's going to do is take our application, our version 2 of IT guys, and deploy it to our target environment. Now that environment has two servers in it. It has a database server and an application server. And if I look at my deployment log, that's just happened, it's pulled out itguys.war and deployed that to our application server. And it's pulled out the DDL and the DML that make up version 2, and it's applied that to our database server. And if I look at the log, you can see we've got an alter table which has added the date of birth column, and we've run some updates to populate that date of birth column. And that has deployed version 2 into our test environment. So let's be a tester now, and we'll refresh that. And there we have, we're at version 2, and we've added the date of birth column. So the testers are looking at this now, and they go, well, that's great and all that, but we were supposed to have an achievement column. Where's the achievement column? This is not there. This is essentially failed testing. We can't go into production because we need an achievement column that tells me what these people are famous for. Okay, so the developers then build a new version, version 3 of IT guys, and they say, oh, sorry, fix that. Let's roll that forward. So what we'll do now is we'll move this particular version, the version 3. We'll move that into our UAT environment, and I'll deploy that. So I'm going to deploy version 3 into our UAT M1 now, and click OK. And the same thing's going to happen, right? It's going to deploy version 3 of our application, which consists of a database change to add the achievement column and an application code change to add it to the web page. If I look at the deployment log, DeployHub knows that we've currently got version 2 in that target environment. So what it does is it just picks up the version 3 alter scripts and applies those, and picks up version 3 of itguides.war and deploys that. So again, the WAR file has gone to our application server, and version 3 of the DDL and DML have gone to our database server. And if I look at the log file output, you can see once again, we've added the achievement column and we've done an update to populate it. So if I now look at what's happening running in test and I refresh, we've now got version 3, which has added our achievement column. So we've gone from V1 to V2, which added the date of birth column, and we've gone from V2 to V3 to add the achievement column. Now, that's great, that's what we want, that's ready for now for production. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take version 3 and I'm going to move it up to our production domain. And again, this would normally have either an approval gate on it or would trigger a notification to production support to say that there's a new version ready to go into production and for us to do the pull. Now, what I'm going to do now is in production, I can see I've got this IT Guides v3. So as a production person now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy that into my production environment. So I'm just going to pick prod-env1 and deploy it. Now, you'll remember that when we deployed into UAT, we were going from version 1 to version 2. And then, we needed a fix, so we put version 3 in there and I deployed that, and that went from version 2 to version 3. So at each stage, I was going just one step forward. Here, I've just deployed version 3 into a production environment, and production was currently on version 1. So we're actually applying version 3 over the top of version 1. Now, normally that would be, from an application point of view, that's not a problem. From a database point of view, that would be an issue, because if we're making a database change and it's applied as an alter script, that database change might well rely on being at v2 schema. So imagine we deploy version 2 and that adds a column, and then version 3 creates a stored procedure that references that column. We can't just put v3 over the top of v1 because that column's not there. The stored procedure would fail, everything would fall apart. What DeployHub does is it recognizes the fact that we're currently at version 1 in production. So when I look at my files now, you can see that the first thing DeployHub did was to roll forward the database. So it moved the database forward by applying version 2 of the DDL and the DML. So it applied that change automatically to bring the database up to version 2. Then when it deployed version 3, it did a standard version 3 deploy, which is to deploy version 3 of itguides, followed by the version 3 DDL and DML. So these three were essentially what would have happened if the application had already been at v2, but DeployHub recognized it was at v1 and applied the v2 changes to the database automatically. If I look at the log file output, you can see we've now got the alter script and update, and then another alter script and update there, and that's rolled the database forward twice, and that happened completely automatically. As you say, all I did was right click and hit deploy. So this is what we call the version jumping. If I look at production now and refresh, we've gone from version 1 straight to version 3. Now that's incredibly useful if you're building that bridge between an agile methodology and a waterfall methodology. So in agile, you'll be creating many builds, right? Every time a change is made, a check-in happens, the build's happening, you're getting many versions of application code. And now those versions, can go into test. But not all of them are going to end up coming out of test, right? They're going to fail, we're going to fix forward, we're going to have another build, and that's going to roll forward. So at some point, what goes into production is a subset of what has gone through development and test. And DeployHub eases that process by allowing you to automatically move forward by identifying components that have to be applied as deltas. So you can see we've gone from V1 to V3 in production. If I look at my IT Guys app now, look at my versions. So look at my signed environments. See, I've got version 3 sitting in production in UAT. We didn't put the deploying version 2 into development, but there we go. So it knows where everything is, and I can pick up the deploy logs from there. And I can see I've managed to get IT Guys into UAT ahead of schedule, which is really rather useful. Okay, that's the end of the demo. Hope you found that useful. Look forward to the next installment. Thank you very much, and goodbye.